Okay, we're rolling now, and this is what I want to ask you. You just said, "I'm sorry all that happened to you, and I'm proud of you," or something to that degree. When you say all of that happened to me, how are you describing that? What do you mean when you say you're sorry all of that happened to me?
When I say I'm sorry for all that happened, I mean to say on a bigger spectrum that life may happen to a lot of people, but when I read your story, I understood what it's like to be a man in love and then to navigate through life with loss. And it's not easy. It's not.
Is that how you see what happened?
In a lot of cases, yes, I do. I feel like in a world filled with people with a lot of filters and a lot of thought processes where they think 10 times before they say anything, write anything down, interact with people, you are one of the only few people I know to this day, and I'm 29, so far, who actually speak their mind and write their mind. And for me, that's very big. Yes, of course, in a lot of cases, not everybody can take honesty well. But in your case, I think that's the most purest version of you that exists. As a man, as a person, as a lover, as a father, as a human being. And I really wanted to say this even after once we're done publishing the book. So I had it in my head ready, and I'm so glad that we're still having this conversation, even if it's now, that it's huge that you're bringing your life out into the world in your own way. It is big.
But is that what most people do when they write their autobiographies or memoirs? Do most people do the same thing I'm doing?
If I'm honest, not really. Some people, what they end up doing is they hide a lot of cases like names, situations, places, locations, because they're afraid. So a lot of people might tell their feelings, but they don't tell what actually happened. But in your case and in your book, what was happening was that in the rawest and most honest form, you were able to document yourself exactly the way it happened and then express yourself as you went along the book. There are very few people that do that. Like, yes, so when I say most people tend to hide in fear even in their writing, there was no fear in your writing. In all honesty, there was no fear. You didn't want to be an author, like you said. You wanted to tell your life the way it happened.
If you could imagine the things that I thought were highlights, I waited a long time. There are still some things in my life that I thought maybe someone was going to come and get me, like someone was going to rescue me. And, you hear these people say sometimes, no one's coming to save you. I've had to accept a number of times that no one's coming to save me, and no one has come to save me. The only way I've been able to continue to exist is by me doing exactly what I'm doing, being expressive and saying what I feel, saying what I mean to the best of my ability. I realize that everybody's not going to get it. And perhaps I have, maybe, I don't want to use the word offended. Maybe I have caused people to not necessarily, I don't know, understand me, for lack of a better word. But I don't know. I don't want to get caught on that. There's something I wanted to ask you in particular, but is there anything more? Because we didn't document the opening part of our conversation. Is there anything more that just stands out? Because I want to ask you something in particular before, and I want you to tell me, your general thoughts. Is there anything, what stood out the most?
What stood out the most to me was the picture. So there's a picture in this book with two people holding hands.
Wow.
And I won't lie, before I knew the context, I kind of just stared at it for a while, which is also one of the reasons why it took a while to get you the book too, because I there was a part of me that didn't want to know, because there was so much emotion attached to the drawing itself that I kind of just stared at it for a while and just let whatever I've read so far just take me in. Does that make sense?
Yes, but what is it about that photo that is questionable?
I mean, it's not questionable. It's more like that I felt like when I was looking at that picture, it felt like, you know how you just said right now that you wanted a savior, but at one point how you went through life was being expressive and true to yourself. So that picture is a way of expressing that you're holding your inner self's own hand, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt extremely connected to that, because it's true when they say that we're all looking for somebody to save us, maybe through religion, through friends, through family, through books, movies, escapism of any sort. But in the end, it is you who gets yourself out of that corner.
Wow. And it's amazing you would go to that, because I was going through it today. I shared something with someone. There's a chapter called Women in Public. I don't know if you recall that chapter, but someone was questioning me about my energy, my attitude. And I said, I can tell you, or I could share something with you that's very sentimental. And I opened up the email that I got earlier, and I went straight to that, and I cut that part out, and I actually sent it to them. And they said, wow, I can hear what you're not saying. And as it relates, I'm going to change subject. As it relates to that photo, there are 6 things in that photo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that are significant. And then there are 2 things, I don't know if you're looking at it, but when you think about it, the next time when you look at it again, I'm sure you will. There are 6 things in there that are significant. And there are 2 things in there that are significant. But that is kind of sort of one person holding their little hand, the big person holding the hand of themselves. So that is significant of who I am in saving myself by just staying alive for as long as I can, and just continuing to get up every day.
I get that, because again, as somebody who's worked closely with you, one thing I will say is that reading this book really made me, kind of understand how hard life can be and unpredictable life could be. Because you know how you just said, it was me holding myself, trying to get through life as far as I could. Now this is me, this is my personal experience. I'm 29.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not married. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have anybody but myself, my dad, and my mom passed away. So it's okay. So it's more like I can only imagine being with somebody, getting married to somebody, than just them going away. You dealt with it in the most humane way possible. Because there was this part in the book where you had written, and your writing style had suddenly changed. It turned formal, and it was towards the part where your children's grandparents had already decided and understood who would reside where and who's living with who.
Mm-hmm.
But it was written in such a formal way that it almost felt cold. Because you're writing it now. But when I think about that 26-year-old, 28-year-old, apologies. You're young. You just got married a while ago, and this is happening. You just had kids, and suddenly now you have to think about the financial situation, the will, how things are going to go from here. It's as if you blinked and everything was taken away, and now everybody's planning ahead, and all you can think of is, what do I do now? Nothing sits right because you can't even process it.
And I did for a long time.
And I don't blame you, because this is the person you shared a bed with and in a way grew up with, because not a lot of people know this, but your frontal lobe develops at the age of 25. Before that, you're still developing, becoming an adult, and you're still growing. And again, you don't have a manual through life. The most you can have is a partner, because that's the closest physically you can be with somebody and emotionally.
It is. And you know, that has happened. What you're saying right now has happened a few times. I was telling the person today I was chatting with when I shared that part, it's like that has happened to me so many times. And you know, the fear, there's a fear inside of me that will not go to that place again. I will come close. I will get to the edge. I will act the part. But something will happen just before I make that level of commitment where I said, I can't have that anymore. And I've always said, you know, if I ever make that level of commitment, it would be for life, for certain. I don't understand breakups. I don't. If I had to give advice to someone who's about to get married or who's married, you know, that is a decision that really is for life. And you have to find a way to get through it. You know, of course, death is one way to end that. But, you know, when people are struggling, you just have to find a way to stick through that and stick it out. And the people that are divorced and have let go of that high level of commitment, who knows where they would be if they just buckled down and just insisted that there's no way we're going to separate. It's just so easy to just walk away when it gets hard. But right now, I just avoid it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I actually agree with that, because right now the divorce rates are high. While many argue that it's also because of the fact that people now have rights and they can walk away from partners that are abusive, but that's a completely different conversation.
Right.
I'm talking about how people run away, just like you are. That things get hard, finances get tough. Maybe you're in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day that you have to share. And it's so easy for anybody to stray away from their partner emotionally as well. And that's something where even I think about, where I go like, but why? You said for better or for worse.
Wow.
And this is not even half of the worst, and you're already detaching.
And let me just say this while you're on that note. I meant to say this. If I had to give advice to anyone who becomes widowed or just separate, it's like once that tie is severed, once the papers are signed, and once you have agreed in your heart that we're going separate ways, it's like, you know, the grass is not greener on the other side. Whatever you're thinking, if you're thinking of separation or divorce, it's not what you think it is. It really is worth sticking it out through that pain, because on the other side of any kind of struggle or pain is the greatest reward if you can endure. And divorce marriages are very hard. They're very difficult for people. And again, I would just say, you know, based on my experience, it would be worth sticking in there, hanging it out, finding out whatever it takes to make it work. And you know, quitting, walking away, separating, divorce, that's just cannot be an option. And it's something you really have to say, think, feel, believe deep inside before you make the commitment. And again, in closing on that note, that's why to this day, I think I've been single for so long, because I know how important that commitment is. And it's just hard for me to trust that someone would stay with me that long through the thick and the thin, because I know me. If I give my commitment to someone, they'll never leave me. I think I would go nuts. I don't. And it's just frightening to me. So anyway, that's all I have to say on that note.
I honestly, I would like to add to that. I feel like that's because you love wholeheartedly, just like you love your book as well. And by love your book, I don't mean you're obsessed with it. I mean, you put all of you into that book. In this book, it's everything and anything. Like, if you want to know Travis inside out and how he'd be in a situation and how much he'd love and how committed he would be and how poetic he can be, This is the book for sure.
Oh wow, I didn't expect you to market it, but thanks for that plug.
No, I didn't mean to market it. It's true because, again, I might have viewed it from a technical lens, but when I look at it emotionally, since day one, I have told you that I can feel your heart into the book. And that's true. And you know how you just said that level of commitment that you just couldn't give or haven't chosen to give in the future to anybody as of yet. It's because, like you said, you're going to give it your all. And for somebody who's actually seen for worse, because people cannot bear their partners dying even of old age. You guys, you went through it. You, not even you guys, you went through the worst at 28. You didn't even touch 30. You didn't even, you were just 3 years away from, you were done with your frontal lobe development, and then you were 28 and just 2 years away from being early 30s. And that's when people say, oh, that's where the financial stability comes in. The stereotype, the American dream, that's where you're stable. That's where you have your bigger plans. That's where you travel like crazy. Your early 20s, you're exploring, you're happy, you find love, you go crazy. You had to suffer loss at the time of love and growth. So you have to mature faster than anybody.
So now I think of why I probably am not so easy. Don't get me wrong. There are probably people in my lifetime that would have fallen for me and would have just done anything I needed, wanted, asked for, but I just knew it's like, for me, you have to understand it really is a commitment. If I ever call you and say, guess what? It would really be for life. There would be no second options. Anyway, for the sake of time, I have something I want to, is there anything more you want to say, generally speaking?
No, that's it. That's it from my end.
Okay, without doing any spoilers, there's a section in the book that's towards the end. We won't give it away. If you don't know, then I'll give more information. But there's a section in the book. I spoke with, I call her my ram in the bush. And she was asking me, well, are you having second thoughts? I was like, absolutely not. The reason I want to call is because I want her opinion, generally speaking. And one thing in particular, there's a part of the book, you may remember it happened in 2020, that totally changed how and why I decided to go deep and tell some of the stuff. This book originally was supposed to be just a book of poems and the way I think. I would just try to, some of those poems, that's probably a third of all the ones that I have that you have access to. That's what the book, that's what it was going to originally be about. But when this incident happened in 2020, I just said, okay, instead of writing a book about, to let people guess, I just wanted people to see how deep I thought. I would tell all those stories through some of the titles that are in those poems, and it would just be an abstract book of a whole bunch of different ideas and thoughts and emotions all together, because that's what that special section is about. That's what the whole book is going to be about.
Is it the one that I also added towards the end, where it was a special section?
I can't say I remember it, and if I'm drawing a blank. But no, this was an incident that happened, and this is an incident where there's some certain types of documents. Remember, you guys probably had to...
Oh, yes. Now I remember.
Okay, that particular incident and it was because of that caused me to write all of the other stuff. That experience sent me all the way back to when I was 8, 9, 10, when I was younger. And that's what prompted me to tell all of these stories, because I was kind of sort of reliving some of those things through that. And because of what I was experiencing after that episode, it just opened up my heart and my mind, for one, to be distracted from what I was actually going through at the time, but then to also reflect on some of those things. And that's why they were so razor sharp in my head, even 40, 30 years later, that I was able to to actually bring them. But my question is, that particular incident and that season of the book, if you remember, is something that was very difficult. That's what I had to change. What I had originally wrote, I hope is able to be released one day, because I had to modify it for obvious reasons. And I did not get to say what I really wanted to say. What I wanted to say, it was the best I could say in staying in my politically correct line. I'm not sure I'm using the right word, but I had to modify it. And I don't like the fact that I could not. And I think that's why I might have been so, and now that I'm thinking about it, why when you guys were suggesting I change this and make these adjustments, it's like, no, I've had to make adjustments already. I don't want anything else to be anything other than what I'm feeling, thinking, and what I experience. So that section of the book is difficult for me to reveal and or expose. No pun on that subtitle. But I just want to know what your thoughts are about that, the whole makeup of that. If you want to give some of it away, that's fine. But that is something that's kind of sentimental. It's personal. And, you know, I dedicated this book to my former spouse. I have thought about it, prayed about it, slept on it. I don't think there's anything in that section that she would object to or be embarrassed or be upset about, because she knows who I am and who I was. So for me to be able to express it and get all of that, including that, out of me the way I did, she would be happy. And there's something about this release date. Once this is published, I plan on taking a vacation. I have a place in mind that I want to go. I just want to see all of this just breathe after it's done. But back to my point, that part, did that move you in any kind of way? Is it something that you're surprised that I'm exposing or sharing or telling the way I am? And is it something that you would probably, let's just say if I was your favorite first cousin, would you advise that I not expose it? Is it something that is too sentimental? What are your thoughts about that whole part of that experience?
And okay, so I know what part you're talking about, and I don't want to reveal it to the readers because I feel like the placement, and this is just, let me first talk technical and then I'll talk emotional, okay? Mm-hmm. The placement of that incident was very strategic in my mind, because when they first read your life, how it happened, what happened, how you navigated through it later on, the decisions you made, then what was happening, your thought processes, when they come up, when the buildup happens to that very part, even my editor sat down for a second and said, I see why. And
see why what?
So by I see why, what I mean is we see why it's the way it is, as in why are your thoughts the way they are. So why expose and reveal, no pun intended, is the way that it is. And if you were to ask me as a first cousin or as a best friend,
favorite first cousin,
as to if I would do anything different to that, I would not. Yes, now that you've told me you've held back, I did know about this initially as well because Kathy and I did have a conversation. I feel like that just gives room for the reader to really understand and want to ask you questions on what could you have written. And that could be a segment on its own. But when I read that part, I would not change anything about it simply because it wasn't completely censored, but it was enough information for me to say, yes, I feel it. I you know how you put your feet on the cold ground? Mm-hmm. That sensation, I felt it.
And was it cold?
Well, cold would be the wrong terminology. I would say that you know how, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but a lot of kids do at a young age, young age, well, where they feel safer in corners and not smoother spaces. Why? Because that corner is like an embrace. It's more comfortable. So I'd say it wasn't cold. It was like a corner. So it wasn't like a hug by a person, but it was just enough for me or for you or for anybody to say, I want to be heard.
Wow, this would be a good place to go to commercial if this was a movie, because you just summed it up. And I think that is the story of my entire life. I don't feel like I've been heard or understood, and many people feel that way. I see that in people when they don't even open their mouth and say a word. I've become so sensitive to people who want to be expressive and either can't or don't know how, or are afraid to do so. And there are many stories that I would like to tell. Many times I wanted to say something and speak up when I knew that I don't want to use the word right, when I knew that I had reason to stand firm on what it is I may have been defending, and just did not get that opportunity to do so. And I guess this was that time for me to just write about it and talk about it. And of course, the whole book is me wanting to be heard about some of those good, bad, and some not so good situations. But that particular section is just where it's like, I think this not only needs to be heard, it needs to be told, and it needs to be fully revealed and exposed.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I gave the example of the corner. The reason why I give that is simply because of the fact that in that corner, you don't have anybody but yourself. It's not cold, but it's also not warm.
Yeah.
But it's something. And I think that's the same case with when I was reading this book, that it's something. It's something coming out of the heart of a man who just wants to be heard. And it might have taken me a while to understand that, but I do. And other than that, honestly, when it comes to the book itself, I want people to really hear your voice, and I want you to really, when you set out there to maybe set out a word or a video of yourself or anything that you put out there, I really do want you to talk exactly the way that you do, because I feel like I want them to hear it when they read it. I want them to hear you.
And I will. I have all intentions. I have no idea what to expect. And again, I'm not going to do any big marketing. I'm not going to do anything. Once it's just officially published, I will let people know as they know. But I kind of want it to grow on its own. It's like, just putting a raw seed out of a fruit into the ground and just seeing what happens. Because, you can get these special seeds, and you can put some special dirt, and you can put some water in it first, let it grow sprouts. There's so many ways they call it whatever you call it, grafting, when you're trying to graft something. But I kind of want this to be a raw seed into just regular plain dirt, no fancy soil. And I just want to see how it grows. And it's out of me now. Most of the stuff that was hidden as a little boy, it's out of me. It's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. I just wanted it to just be out there. Whether anyone reads it or not, I get in trouble from one of my friends. Say, hey, don't talk like that. You want people to read it. You want it to be a million seller. And of course I do. But that's not why I wrote it. I wrote it for relief and freedom and closure for everything that I don't feel like I got heard on or listened to or even acknowledged in some cases. So go ahead.
At that time, I weren't even surrounded by people that would understand. I mean, when the death happened, the grandparents were too busy trying to figure out who stays with who, what happens with what. Your mother, on the other hand, was there, but she also had to first figure out some arrangements with you. You had to figure out arrangements on your own. So kind of just life kept happening one after the other. And I feel like now is actually, I won't say the best time, not in a bad way, but the most realistic time to finally give yourself the peace you deserve after all that happened. And in terms of you letting it just grow in the rawest form possible, I actually support that. While marketing can be a strategic realm and, you have to get into an algorithm, sometimes when it's from the heart, you do have to watch it grow slowly.
Yeah.
One rose at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to give it fancy fertilizers or sparkling water as some of my friends do it, which I don't think works, but sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have to give them tap water, give them the real ground, and just watch them grow at their own time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, in closing, that part that I wanted to ask you about, it's very sensitive to me because, of who it kind of sort of reflects and how, but it's just not something that I could just not talk about. I couldn't have something like that happen and then just be quiet and let it go, because there are people who are doing that kind of thing repeatedly and are getting away with it. And not that I'm trying to punish anybody at all, but it's almost like when you're violated in some kind of way as a child or as someone who cannot or could not help themselves, what you do by not talking about it is give the, what do you call it? The purple. Who is the person who you give?
You enable the other person.
That's a good word. You enable that kind of behavior, and it's just, again, it's not my idea to embarrass or shame or expose or reveal. I just feel like it's just my duty that if I don't tell this, if I don't share my experience, that I would be enabling that kind of behavior. And I'm hoping someone will read everything and find, the nuggets within it. But this particular section, I'm just hoping that someone will see themselves and say, okay, I don't want this to happen to me, or I definitely don't want to be a part of this as it happens to someone else. And even, the circumstances, if any of those, how do I say this? If I had an opportunity to speak to the people that impacted my life in every chapter or every topic that I spoke about, I don't have any animosity, any anger. I don't hate anyone. And I don't think I'm doing this because, okay, it's my doing. I feel like I have no choice but to share this experience because it's something that I went through, that I think it's a seed that was planted in me that I have to give birth to, in this season. If I had my way, maybe that's why I'm having, I don't want to call it second thoughts. Maybe that's why I'm wanting your input. And it's why one of the things that is so touching for me is because I know it's more than just me just trying to tell my story or tell what happened. I think it's probably, a big part of why I came to earth, why I was here, to have this experience and then just talk about it in the way I talked about it. I really think if someone gets into the nuts and bolts of it, they will see something more than just an experience. They will see an adventure, even, maybe even, I don't know, just an example.
Just a light beyond what meets the eye.
Yeah, there you go. Gosh, you got some good words. But that's it. I mean, for the sake of time, I didn't know how long we would be. But
I do want to say one thing. I really, really want to add this. I feel like right now the reason why you're kind of on your toes or in the moment of, in that fraction of labor in a way.
Yes.
Is because you haven't gotten this far. And now it's like you're just there. You can see the finish line. The ribbon's there. The person with the flag is standing. And now all you have to do is cross it.
Right. And I have the energy. It's like sometimes whenever I'm working out or in any kind of race, it's like, man, sometimes you doubt, do I have the energy to cross? I know I have the energy because of, the energy that works within me. I do see the finish line, and that's another good way of putting it. I have not gotten this far, and I'm excited about crossing, just finishing and getting this out of me. And I would encourage anybody that's got something that they want to talk about or tell. You don't have to write a book, but you gotta expose it. You've got to reveal it. Whether it comes in a book or movie or whatever, you can't just hold it in. Because by the time I got to this experience, and what is the word? It prompted me to write about everything else. This experience just reminded me of all those other times where I got through and went through. While I was going through it, it's like, if I could get through that, I can probably get through this. And I'll never forget the day. This is what I'm going to say. I'm really going to close now. I do have one more question, but while I was experiencing that, it's like I got through that, and I can get through this, and I'll never forget the day. I think I mentioned it in the book. When it was all said and done, whenever I felt like that part of that experience was coming to a close, when I could just like really put I want to say nail in the coffin, but I don't know how that will sound. But whenever that was finally finished, it's like, wow, I don't have to worry about that, for lack of a better word, devil haunting me anymore. I've been delivered. Yeah. I've had the cross experience. I'm buried now. It's time to rise from the ashes, because that was a time of where I felt like I was being buried. But I was reminded by a sermon that I've heard 1,000 times, where it says, when it's dark and you feel like you're buried, you're not buried at all. You're planted. And funny, we would be talking about a seed that would grow raw. And that's how I'm going to end this part of our time by saying, I've been planted for a long time in the dark for a long time. And this book is like a sprout of me breaking through some of that darkness and looking forward to what the light will bring in terms of being fruitful and multiplying, generally speaking.
And let's see how you grow in that point, because now finally, after marinating in the sand for so long, we're finally seeing the light for a little bit. And then we come a little growth. And just to end this, I wanted to also add that as a man, it's already really hard to really bring out your emotions, to be poetic or be honest, or even, because it's a stereotype out there that men should be diplomatic, they should be calculated, they should be logical. And I think this is such a great stepping stone for anybody out there who has been pressured or felt like life has weighed them down to the point where they need to be calculated, need to think logically, and then when they go to bed at night, they have to think about the next day. I hope one day everybody, just like Travis, has the strength to write it out in the rawest, most honest form.
And I will second that. And I have so many closings, just like in the book. Having to change what I wanted to say from that specific, if you'll notice, all the other experiences I got to tell my way, how they happened, and I just emptied my soul. But in that section, I had to edit and change to just, to try not to step on toes. And that frustrated me. It's like, why do I get a public hanging, but I have to tell the story, in a little quiet, dark, safe room? Why can't the shaming be not the shaming? Why can't anyway, hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I just did not want to have to edit, and maybe I'll just, I don't know, somehow or another, I don't know, maybe I'll get to just talk about it verbally, and at some point in time. But I cut and I edited as much as I could, and I wasn't being like rough on you guys who are so professional about how to say it. I just did not want my words to be changed.
One thing I will say, and to everybody has ups and downs. Everybody has their way of processing, and we had our own. That never meant that either of us were tired of each other or just wanted to get the work done or were just going with it. Instead, it was as simple and loving as that this is a baby that requires love, honesty, and his father, which is you.
Amen. I receive that. Now we're going to officially bring this part to a close. This is something I don't mind asking while we're still documenting. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for those thoughts. And I look forward. And you're never, ever, as long as I can breathe, you're never getting rid of me. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, we're not going anywhere.
Just because this book is published, you're going to hear from me regularly. You're going to get that tin can with the 3 different popcorns, the caramel, the regular, and the cheese at Christmas time. You're going to definitely get one of those. I am stuck with you for life, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm sorry. Just letting you know.
I love it, and I'm okay with it. I think I've made a new friend and a long-term companion, or a first cousin.
Absolutely. That's what we'll call it. Favorite first cousin.
Favorite first cousin.
I'm going to earn that slot. Now, in closing, I have so many friends in Latin America, and I just would love to have the book at least in Spanish. What are the chances of even remotely coming close to having a Spanish version of this by the official release date? Just go ahead and break my heart and say it's impossible, but we can do it within 90 days of the official release. So
if you want to be honest, or do you want me to be just okay?
I want you to hit me in the face with the pie on national TV.
So 2 things, depending on, because we do have translators that sit in our department, and it all depends on as per requirement. So if I were to ask their price, and if I were to ask their price in expediting the work, then we could make it in the week of Mother's Day. Not on Mother's Day, but maybe a week after.
That would be good enough. Well, then get me 2 prices. Get the expedited price, and then get the price for however long it would take them if they just sat on the porch and peeled potatoes while they were doing it. No hurry.
Of course. I'll make sure that they're gardening well as well in that price.
Cool. I'd appreciate it.
No worries.
I appreciate you. I love you. And again, you're never getting rid of me. I'm sorry.
I'm okay with that. And I love you too. And we're finally at the finish line. So right now, just know I'm holding your hand, and we're going to get it done. It's going to be out on Mother's Day.
Woo! I needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, we'll talk soon, and have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. You'll hear from me in a few days, but you know that already.
Yeah, I'll probably send you an email by tomorrow or day after, because right now nobody's in the office, so I'll have to text and wait on them to respond.
No worries.
Okay?
Okay, we'll talk. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay,
bye.
Ciao. Bye. There you have it, my friends. Another edition of SWIM, SWYM. That is the acronym for Say What You Mean. I have been thinking about making that call for about a week now, and intensely for the last 3 days. And all day today is like, I've got to get this call in, and I hope she's going to be available. That is a person who worked with me in the 4th quarter of the release of my memoir, My Mother's 5th Child, Revealed, Exposed / The Knee Baby. And again, as much as I want this book to do well, I didn't write it to be famous or popular. Of course, if it sells, that'll just be God just being God and showing out. But the little boy in me just wanted to speak. And that incident that happened, it just kicked me in the seat of my pants and forced me to bring that little boy, that young man, that even now seasoned gentleman to life, so that if no one listened back then, they will at least have the opportunity to hear some of the foundation of who I am, why I am the way I am, and why you need to just be okay with people being who they are and why they are the way they are. With that being said, find someone you need to say I love you to. Don't just say it, show it, mean it, let it be true. And thank you in advance for the support of your interest in my memoir, My Mother's 5th Child, Revealed, Exposed. Have a good night.